Minister. Now I think I
Oh,
know.
yeah, okay, the minister? Okay, who is it?
We're all ministers.
Everybody?
We all have a ministry. What's yours?
Well,
Let's
I
find out.
don't know.
Let's find out.
All right.
Let's find out. Is my mic still working? I jerked the cord kind of hard. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Brenda. Can you imagine walking into a church, seeing a great sermon, and then finding out that person wasn't the pastor? Do we all have a role to play in church? Yeah. What if the thing that we're doing doesn't feel like something that happens at church? Could it still be a ministry? Yeah. Sometimes we feel discouraged from stepping up and doing something in church because the thing that we're interested in doesn't seem like it fits with what church is doing or what the mission of a church is doing. And sometimes it's so discouraging we actually step away from it. I asked Sam to write an essay, a short essay. Would you come up and read that for us right now? This will help us to, the idea of it is it's supposed to help us grasp the mindset that we get into.
Hi. Lots of people tend to have God on the back burner of their lives. Now, for those of you asking, how can this possibly happen? The common answer is this: life happens. Our jobs, academics, family, and other obligations may get in the way of our time with God. However, have you ever considered that your perspective on your occupation, your school, or family may be in the way instead? Why does life have to be so secular? Why does it need to be separated from God? Isn't He a part of our lives? Isn't He the one who provides it? With these questions in mind, how can we end up putting Jesus on the back burner? At church, we speak with such zeal about living like Christ, living in Christ, having Him as a priority. We speak about a burning desire to serve selflessly and be righteous. But as soon as we go back home, going back to our workplaces, going back to our classrooms and our schools, going back to our regular work weeks, we disconnect God from everything else. We, as New Life, are going through some major changes. It's pretty obvious. In these times when we are uncertain about the future, it is even more critical to stay close to Jesus. Amen. However, what will you do? I ask because ultimately, no one is going to force you closer to God. Not even God Himself is forcing you to. So I leave you with one final question. Do you want Him in the center stage of your life, or simply running in the background? That is all.
I guess I don't need the mic. So it's an interesting question she proposes. And part of the reason that we separate our lives, like you were talking about, from the spiritual, Christ-focused idea of being involved in ministry is because while we're at church, a lot of the time, no intentional connection is made between church and life. We walk in here and we get these pictures in our minds of what ministry is, and generally it looks like a pastor, right? They are the minister, like Brenda's and Chad's, play illustrated skit. And when you think that a minister is just the person who does the baptizing and all the preaching and all of the administrative work and the things that they went through to try to figure out what a minister was, you lose something. And we start feeling guilty when we're not as interested in that particular person's ministry as we wish we were. I'm reading this book, Every Believer a Minister, and it was part of the inspiration for today's message. I wanted to read a piece of this that really answers this question in a great way. If you're not a pastor, you have kind of a list of questions, and you have only a few options for getting past what kind of schema you're living in and into the new picture, which is that we're all ministers. And there's a really good solution for this. And that is the discovery, and now I'm reading from the book, that one already is a minister. Could it be Robert? Could it be Robert? That wasn't intentional. Could it be Edward? Could it be, or Edgar, sorry. Could it be Marguerite that you're already a minister? The impression often given in sermons and church literature is that one could be, or that one should be, in ministry. The result is that members spend a great deal of time struggling to achieve ministry. They think if they perform a certain action or take a particular stand, they will become ministers. They'll join the ministerial crowd. The usual result of such legalism is a great deal of guilt and a continual dissatisfaction. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. Ministry begins with the person, not the job. Since you are a minister, can you turn the person next to you and say, I am a minister? I am a minister. Are you a minister? If you're not convinced, you don't have to say it. Are you a minister? Since you are a minister, and if you're not thinking, yes, I am a minister, if you're not sure why that fits in, continue listening, please. Since you are a minister, find ways to use for the good of others the special gift received from God. What's that mean? God's given each of us gifts, visions, passion, and some of that doesn't fit the church schema of what ministry looks like, but it is still ministry. Robert, what's your job? You drive a truck. Can it be that Robert is in ministry as he drives the truck and communicates and spends time with the other people that work in the same business? Mom, what do you do? What do you like doing? Yes, and you're doing something else right now. Drawing. So teaching and drawing, can those be places of ministry? Can art be a place of ministry, Robert? Yeah. Greg, what's your job? Heating and air conditioning? Okay, for some people, to call you a minister, that'd be a stretch. But can ministry happen in your environment? And you have other interests, you like theology and etc. And you bring that in here. So for each of us, I challenge you to ask yourself, in what kind of minister am I instead of am I a minister? What kind of minister am I instead of am I a minister? Or am I a minister yet? Ministry has often been constricted because needs were stressed and gifts were forgotten. That happens in church plants, doesn't it? You have like this really strong need for a treasurer, and so you're doing it because there's a strong need. A member becomes a Sabbath school teacher, for example, because the Sabbath school council has laid out a glaring need and no one else will do it. Actually, you really need a balance of need and resource in order to to really respond well to ministry. If I were, let's imagine, okay, so I guess the author of this book, his name is Rex. Can you imagine Rex with me for a second? He's got white hair, he's a little thin, likes to wear plaid flannel, and he wears dress pants only. Never wears sweatpants, even to bed, dress pants. And he wears nice shoes. And for some reason, Rex never learned how to swim. He kind of makes that claim here in a second, but let's just imagine Rex for a second. If I were to see you drowning 100 yards from shore, I would not jump in to save you, because I cannot swim. I can swim, but I would do better running for help or yelling. Many efforts at ministry are simply futile attempts. Listen to this. Are you listening? Many efforts at ministry are simply futile attempts to do something one is not equipped to do, rather than identifying personal gifts and abilities so that they may be put into action. What if we identified what our specific passions and abilities, our calling was, and began to do that, and allowed the church to be weak in the areas that nobody is specifically gifted, and just what? Yet, yes. And people will come, but not if we have people who are ill-equipped filling the positions that they would fill if they came. Does this make sense? And the reason that I am bringing this up today is because we are in a transition place. And one of the last parts of a huddle, since we were talking about huddles, is you kind of celebrate and encourage each other, right? In a huddle. You can. At the end of a game, did you ever win a game, Robert, in your football team? Did you ever have a huddle at the end to say, like, good job, guys? Yeah. So huddling, part of that is to celebrate. And one of the things that I discovered at our last leadership team meeting is that Doug Bing, who works here at the conference, he's our conference president, he said, show us a new model. He's excited about New Life being a place where experiments can happen. And I want to see what it looks like for a church to operate on the just do what you're good at model. During the leadership team meeting, Sean mentioned that he's doing AV like every week. And somebody apparently asked him, do you ever get burned out? And he said, no, I like it. So Sean is good at what he does, and his brain is engaged in that way of thinking, and there's something about it that catches his imagination. And so he can do it, right? Has anybody ever been engaged in, Mom, are you burnt out are you just burnt out from drawing? No. Obviously not. You're just doing, who told you to do that? Did you get an assignment to keep drawing and you're just struggling through it? Same for me. I love drawing or making things. I'm not burnt out of building the tiny house. I really enjoy it. Anybody else have a thing like that in their life? You could just do it a lot more. What?
Like writing that skit. I loved doing that. I loved performing it. When I was writing it, I was like, I want to do this way more often. I just love performing and creatively communicating.
Okay. Chad, are you burned out of doing skits?
No, I'm at the beginning of that. I'd like to do it more.
Okay.
I still have a bit of anxiety doing it, but I enjoyed it, and it wasn't as bad as the last time. So it's something I would like to do more because I do enjoy that.
Sure. Yeah. Is there anything else that people are doing that they are totally not burned out on and would love to do way more of?
In church or anywhere?
Anywhere in your life. Greg, you like teaching, right? Yeah. You teach for your job as well as here at church. Do you feel anywhere close to being burnt out from teaching? Yeah? I like teaching too. I'd like to do this more often. I don't feel burnt out from doing this. So it's those kinds of things. And I've got this theory that if you're doing what God designed you to do, that you don't run out of steam. Can I get a little amen for that? Yeah?
I will say this, when we're talking
Yeah, come on up.
about it, that you can also be functioning in a...
Should we give her a mic?
It's just a small point. Stand real close to you.
Yeah. Here, let's
Okay.
kiss.
It's a small point. That it's not just that, because you could be doing your calling. Because I was saying, like, with music, I was like, oh, I'm not burned out doing music. Like, I've been doing it every week for, like, I don't know how many years. And before that, I was with people, but now it's just been me every week. And I was thinking, like, I don't feel like I like doing it. I wish there were more people to do it with me, because that's fun. Have a rotation. But I like it. But then I was thinking, because you said if you're burned out, and this means that. And I was like, well, you know what, though? Music is a calling for me, creatively communicating and leading. But if I was in an environment where it was toxic and people were telling me how much they didn't appreciate it or something, I might feel burnt out, even if I'm in my calling, and that might confuse me. So part of it is the environment you're into. I just don't want, you don't want a blanket statement
That's
like
wise.
this equals that, because it's like there's multiple reasons. But yeah, like you said, I'm just doing this every week by myself. But I'm like, I like picking songs out. I like singing. You know, that's what I feel called to do. Like some more people, but
Good.
then you don't have to. You still sing in the
Rod,
back.
if you were the music leader, would you feel burnt out?
Get the mic.
All right, I got some examples here. That's okay if you see my presenter notes. So Nelson Mandela entered the history books by saying, "It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if need be, it is an ideal for which I'm prepared to die." And before he said that, what happened in his brain? We're going to leave him aside for a second and answer that question in a second. Let's go and look at Handel. Anybody familiar with Friedrich Handel? Handel's Messiah? Before he wrote that, what happened in his brain? I'm just going to ask a few more of these questions. Galileo constructed the telescope that first observed 4 moons of Jupiter. He also discovered mountains on the moon with his telescope. Before that happened, what happened in his brain? How about King James? He commissioned a mixed denominational panel of translators to write a more accessible version of the Bible for the people of his day. What was happening in his brain? Here's our last example. Anybody heard of Anne Sullivan? Helen Keller's tutor? Before she dedicated her life to helping blind and deaf Helen Keller to be able to access the world through sign language in the hand, what happened in her brain? For Mandela, it was God saying. Can we give God credit for each of these wonderful lives lived? God said, "Fight for the oppressed." For Handel, he said, "You might write a song about our love." For Galileo, God said, "Look deeper." King James, God said, "Help them understand," or help them understand themselves. Anne Sullivan, God said, "Let light shine into her darkness," Helen Keller's darkness. How many of these people, or of us, have enjoyed life more because they did listen to that quiet voice in their mind? There is a sense of an adventure that comes into our heart when we begin to listen to that. I remember I was feeling guilty. This was a few years ago. I was feeling guilty about liking art so much because I wasn't only making art that was images of Christ or that was something that somebody could use in an evangelistic series as a slide. I was also making like little sculptures and things that moved and other stuff. And I thought, it's not about God, so what's the value? I was feeling guilty about it. And then Brenda, seeing this struggle in me and discerning that there was a better way to think about art, helped me. She encouraged me, but she also got a book called Art Needs No Justification, where the author illustrates clearly that just doing art is ministry. Giving something beautiful to somebody is a blessing for them. And if you want, we can think of an example from heaven. God created, name a few beautiful things or flavors or whatever. Everybody? Can you think of something beautiful, Edgar? Flowers, okay? Birds. A peacock. Great example. Peaches. what a delicious flavor. Like a good peach. Not one of the GMO peaches, but one of those big GMO Yakima peaches. Like, right? Yeah. So what theological basis did God have to go off in order to justify the creation of such beautiful and flavorful things? All he needed was the desire in his divine heart to bless us. He said, I'm going to give them really potent and detailed taste buds and scent organs. And then I'm going to give them really detailed and flavorful and powerful flavors and textures to experience. You like God? Yeah? And so when we decide to follow one of these passions in our heart, whether it's about, there's a whole group of people who does like old cars in Adventism, and they have these like little conferences. They're taking their passions and they're turning it into a ministry opportunity. There's another group of people who love motorcycles. A lot of them go to the Puyallup Church. Same thing. And so when you take something that you're passionate about and you explore it and expand it and make it more accessible to the people around you, then this interesting thing can happen where ministry is occurring, even though it doesn't look like your stereotypical pastor in a crystal box going about their pastoral duties every day. You know what I'm talking about? So, what is your passion? Next week, we're going to be doing a spiritual gifts assessment. Yeah, I have some questions for you. Let's see down here. Who are you? Let's play that one. Are you got to be one of these categories. Maybe you're somebody who says, I know and I am living my passion or calling. It's probably not everybody. I know, but I am not engaged in it as I'd like to be. Maybe it's more people. I know, and I'm in discovery mode. Oh, I don't know what it is, or these things are, but I'm in discovery mode. So there's got to be some of us here who have at one point began to experience something. I would say, Chad, you're in this category today. You realized that you kind of like doing a little acting. I remember when we did a Christmas play, you came out afterward and you said, I think I really enjoyed that. So like you're discovering maybe there's something in me that wants to communicate in a creative way to people. Now, I'm not saying this for sure, but you're nodding, so it's helpful for me up here. And then some of us out there, you might say, I just don't know what I'm passionate about. And so consider yourself in discovery mode, right? Last category, I don't know, but I am. This is kind of a hard category. This means about 3 days from now, you're going to go, oh, I do know. I just love what I'm doing already. Yeah.
That was funny. That's actually what happened to Gordon in the children's story.
That's what happened to Gordon. He was doing his passion, and then he discovered that was his talent, his ministry. Right. Okay. So that's the message for today. Our huddle. Can we call it a huddle? Next week, we're going to come and Brenda's going to help us work through, well, I thought we talked about it. Okay. Brenda's passionate about creative communication, so we'll see. But we will at least have a spiritual gifts assessment and some questions to ask yourself to discover a passion. Because we don't want you constantly operating outside of what God designed you to do and then getting burnt out. And then that's why you have a nominating committee at a normal church, I think. It's because people need seasons if they're not doing what they're designed to do. But my theory is you don't need to be moved from one responsibility to another systematically on like a rotation, because you're getting tired of these things, and if you did it all the time, you would just give up on the church altogether or something. So that'd be a nominating committee kind of a situation. But you could have a church where people do the same thing the rest of their life, if that's what they wanted to do, and they wouldn't get burnt out. They'd just get better and better at it.
And build a team, sure.
And build a team. Yeah, there's more dynamics to it, and you might be thinking of exceptions and things, and that's fine. Consider this a rough draft. But I believe that we can have a church that operates this way, And I had constructed a more discouraging sermon that Brenda helped me, because I was feeling a little condemning. Like, why didn't they do this? And then you helped me realize, and I realized through prayer, that God has a better way of communicating, that there's something for each of us to do. So I want to pray for us.